Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Arkanasa Radio Studios in Laredo, Texas. And once more, I am your host, Chris James. This is September 16th, 2017, Season 2, Episode 36. And I forgot to push a button on my computer here, so I had to start over. Hope y'all don't mind. If you do, you can send me a complaint on email. Tonight, we're talking about strange rituals and traditions. All over the world, people get together on a regular basis and perform some really weird actions. Some might be considered illegal, depending on which country you're in. Some will sound absolutely insane. I'm glad to see there are some folks out there willing to go beyond the norm in a pursuit of tradition. For the past 400 years, people in parts of Japan gather together to celebrate Nakisumo by getting babies to cry. This sounds a bit weird. Who would want to stand around watching and listening to kids crying? The Crying Fest is held each year at the Senjoi Temple in Tokyo. Parents line up with their youngins and then turn them over to sumo wrestlers. These amateur wrestlers then go to great lengths to get the small kids to cry. The louder and harder, the better. The wrestlers make crazy faces and weird noises. Sometimes they wear scary masks while holding these 1-year-olds. Once the kid begins to scream, it is turned back over to their parents. The idea is, by scaring these newborns, it will promote good health. Yep, nothing says good health or a wet diaper like a screaming kid. It is believed that a loud cry or scream from a baby will scare away the demons, ensuring that the kid grows up healthy. I don't know about the demons, but it sure would keep me away. However, kids start to cry first is considered some kind of a winner. Some kids don't cry. I imagine they're petrified or comatose. I wonder if these kids ever wind up in therapy. A sumo-induced night terrors, perhaps. In the first week of December at Baba Umar Duga, a Muslim shrine near Sholapur, India, babies from newborn to 2 years old are ceremoniously carried up to the roof of the temple by their parents. The roof is about 50 feet up. Once the couples are all gathered there, they step up to the edge and throw their kids off the side. The babies drop about 50 feet down to the pavement below, where a group of fellow celebrants who are singing and dancing try to catch the flying kids in cloths stretched out between them, kind of like those old fire department rescue nets. The screaming bundles of joy are dropped from the roof in order to bring good health and prosperity to the family. This ritual has been going on for somewhere around 700 years. In all that time, I'm sure a few mistakes have been made. Things like, "I thought you had him." This practice of throwing Junior from the roof is also practiced by couples who are blessed with a child after having taken a vow at the Sri Santeswar temple near Indi in Karnataka. The Indian authorities are trying to stop this bizarre form of child abuse, but it's not easy when you're dealing with religious practices. Authorities are trying to reason with the community to stop dropping kids off the roof. Unfortunately, the religious leaders all claim this is good for the kids. Well, at least the survivors. In Bulgaria, it is considered a good thing to spit in your baby's eyes while saying, "May the chicken poop on you." This is supposed to make the devil believe the baby is undesirable, and therefore he'll leave the kid alone. The spitting is more of a fox spit. There shouldn't be any saliva sent from mouth to eyes. Once more, it looks like some kids are going to wind up in therapy. Some kid is going to show up at the psychiatrist's office saying, "I'm not worth anything. Chickens pooped on me when I was little." In Finland, nobody gets thrown from a roof or scared into a coma. Instead, the newborns are placed in a box during nap time. Yes, instead of buying an expensive crib from some company making billions of dollars on new parents, the kids are given a cardboard box to sleep in. The tradition got started back when few people living in Finland had any money. The government, in a bid to get expectant mothers to go see the doctor, would offer a box filled with baby stuff. One item in the box was a mattress that just happened to fit the bottom of the box. Some parents thought, well, it does kind of work, so they just left the mattress in the box. For the past 75 years now, all kids born in Finland will start life out sleeping in a box. It is to give everyone an equal start in life. Let's face it, a baby in a box is a lot better than flying or screaming or saliva-soaked babies. In Sweden, babies are placed outside during nap time, even when it's freezing cold out. The idea is to boost the immune system. The kid is wrapped in blankets and a wool hat is placed on his head, and then the infant is set outside for a few hours. Now, I've known kids who grew up in drafty old houses and had few cold weather clothes to wear. They all grew up robust and healthy. Then there are all those kids who never faced any kind of adversity. They tend to be puny and pukish. In many cultures, kids are out running around in the woods acting all crazy, and then they grow up to become adults. In our society, kids spend their days playing video games and they grow up living in their parents' basements. Maybe the Swedes are right. In Castrillo de Murcia, in northern Spain, babies are lined up out in the middle of the street. Men, dressed like the devil, come running along and jump over them. This is supposed to keep the kids safe from the real devil, who has been warned off by these pretend devils. Should the baby manage to survive the first few years of life, it would soon come time for the coming of age or the becoming a man rituals. Now, some of these rituals sound more like population control devices than a way of showing you're old enough. But first, we're going to take a brief pause and play a couple commercials, so don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. coffee, nectar of the gods. And at the Organic Man Coffee Trike, you'll find coffee made the right way, one delicious cup at a time. Stop on by 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. And remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arcanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arcanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. That rather loud thumping noise you heard a minute ago was my knee making contact with something under the desk, and, well, that didn't feel real good. And I hope I didn't say anything nasty over the radio. In Bunlop, on the Pacific Archipelago, the villagers build a huge structure that kind of looks like a tree or a tower. The tower is about 50 or 60 feet tall. The folks, wishing to prove their manhood, climb the tower to whichever height makes their knees shake. A helper will then tie vines to the guy's ankles. Once the vines are in place, the boy, turning into a man, jumps from the tower. He plummets to the ground, and the vines bring him to a stop. This is nothing like bungee jumping. The vines are so long that the head and the shoulders actually make contact with the ground before the body comes to a stop. The guy tying the vines to the ankles just kind of guesses at how long they should be. Weight is never even considered, and the tower is kind of haphazardly put together, so things come loose on occasion. This is called gall jumping or dirt diving. The dirt around the base of the tower is churned up to make it a little bit softer, but still people have had arms and legs broken. Some are knocked unconscious by the impact. But, hey, he's now a man. A man with a man-sized headache. Some guys go back later in life and they try jumping again just to show how manly they are. It's like the old saying, "Hey everybody, watch this." Or how about, "Hold my beer." This death-defying, and sometimes not, ritual came about due to a story from way back in time. A man named Tamale, well, that's how it's spelled, got in an argument with his wife. She stormed out the door of the hut and clomb a huge tree. While sitting on top of the tree, she decided to tie the vines to her ankles. No explanation for this was ever given. Tamale came climbing up to his wife, either to reason with her or argue some more. She stood up and jumped. Well, not to be outdone by a mere woman, Tamale jumped as well. His wife came to the end of the vines and was stopped. Tamale kept going, head first into the ground. You could say he had a head-on collision with a planet. The men of the village don't want to find themselves in a similar situation, so they practice dirt diving. So, just in case their wives ever run away and jump from a tree, they'll be ready for it. Today's bungee jumping was inspired by the gall jumpers from Bunlop. One ritual that I'm surprised hasn't caught on here yet is the Satari Mawe tribes turning into a man ritual. I think some kids might just benefit from it. The benefit would be to stop doing stupid things you see on TV. The Satari Mawe people send any boys who are about to become men into the jungle to collect bullet ants. The bullet ant is considered to be the most painful sting on Earth. For such a small insect, it is more powerful than a black widow's bite. The bullet ant got their name from being described as being as painful as being shot. The boys gather up baskets full of ants and then take them back to the village medicine man. The ants are drugged so they'll go into a kind of a stupor. Next, the ants are woven into a mesh mittens with the stingers all pointed inwards. Once the ants are awake and really pissed off at not being able to get on with things, the ritual is ready to begin. The boy, turning into a man, shoves his hands into the mittens, and then he dances around, trying to not pass out from the pain of hundreds of angry ants stinging his hands all at once. I'm sure he'd be dancing around even if there was no music. The boy has to keep the mittens on for 10 minutes. Ants aren't like bees. A bee stings you once and then dies. Ants sting you until either you squash them or you flick them away. The mittens keep the ants in place, so they just keep stinging. 10 minutes worth. I think I'd rather be thrown off a building. Once the 10 minutes are up, the boy is allowed to pull his hands out from the ant-infested mittens. The venom from the ant stings cause his fingers, his hands, and parts of his arms to be paralyzed, sometimes for days. How does he use the bathroom? His body will convulsively shake uncontrollably for a few minutes for the next few days. Is he a man now? Not quite. He has to do this ritual again and again. In fact, he has to go through this 20 times to prove he's a man. No thanks, I think I'll stick to jumping my bike off a ramp. When young female Mentawans reach puberty, they sharpen their teeth with a rock and a chisel, and then they file them to points. It is supposed to look beautiful. If nothing else, it comes in handy while eating a tough piece of meat. Some tribes see big fat women as beautiful, and others want sharks. The giraffe-necked women of Thailand have a unique custom. The Kayan people like their women with long necks. To enhance their beauty, women wrap long brass strands around and around, making it look as if their neck is getting longer. In fact, the brass wire is pushing down on the shoulders, making them lower, but the neck is still the same length. The locals refer to these folks as the Padong, but the Kayan consider this as slight. It's kind of like calling the Inuit people Eskimo. When first seen by Westerners, it was believed the women had brass rings around their necks. The rings are actually one long piece of brass coiled around the neck. Depending on how long the brass is, it may take several hours to remove or replace the brass. The first few coils will be put on at an average age of about 5. Just a few turns of brass. As the girls grow older, she will be given longer and longer pieces of metal to wrap around her neck. Some folks say this was to protect them from being attacked by tigers. Tigers will grab their prey by the neck in order to suffocate them before dinner. Once a girl has begun wearing the brass collar, it is seldom removed. It gets to a point the women can't hold their heads up anymore without the supporting brass. The average number of coils can be around 20 turns. Now, brass is a much sought-after metal, especially in Thailand. Anytime the women are outside the village, they have to have armed guards along with them to keep bandits away. The Cayenne people have been tracked back to Mongolia. The people are supposed to have migrated sometime around the Bronze Age to the area of northern Thailand. Some Aboriginal Australian tribes send their boys off into the outback by themselves for up to 6 months. This is known as a walkabout. The boy would be out with the spirits. He would have to find food and water on his own. He would also learn how to exist in nature. Once he felt he'd learned enough, he would return home, now as a man. We have kids today who would starve to death in a major city if left on their own. The Aborigine kids live for 6 months in the middle of nowhere with only dead relatives to help them out. The bar mitzvah is the coming-of-age ceremony for boys and girls of the Jewish faith. Girls at 12 and boys at 13, although I know some boys who should probably wait until, say, age 60 or so. Under Jewish law, a person isn't required to observe the commandments until they're old enough. Once the ceremony has been held, the new adults can participate in religious ceremonies as well. The bar mitzvah doesn't mean the boy or girl is an adult yet, only that the person is now under the commandments. Bar means son or daughter, and mitzvah means commandments. Before this ceremony, the child is not really responsible for their own actions. The parents are to blame for any mistakes. Once the bar mitzvah has been taken, the child is now answerable for any mistakes. There is no one set way of doing a bar mitzvah. People tend to use their own ideas as to what needs to be done. There is the aliyah, or reading from the Torah by the children, something maybe more kids should do. Most folks will put on a party to show their friends the son or daughter is now getting closer to adulthood. These parties are as big as most weddings. Some rabbis have said that the bar mitzvah should focus on the religious celebration and not so much on a party. But this is the time that the parents and relatives get to show off how much money they have. A quinceañera, also referred to as the Fiesta de Quince Años, or the Quince, celebrates a Hispanic girl's journey from childhood to maturity. The quinceañera itself takes place around a girl's 15th birthday. Quince meaning 15, and años meaning years. This is popular in many Spanish-speaking regions, such as Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Central and South America, especially in Laredo. Though quinceaños are primarily for women, in recent years some boys have had their own quince celebrations, though such parties usually lack the religious and ceremonial elements. In most communities, the quinceañera begins with the girl going to a special mass. She renews her baptismal vows. She solidifies her commitment to her family and faith. Then it's party time. Here in Laredo, it seems to be the norm to rent a limousine and drive around standing up at the sunroof. The limo drivers sometimes provide booze and other substances that are probably well against the laws. The gathering will look more like a wedding than a birthday party. The only thing missing is a groom. Some of these affairs cost as much, if not more, than a wedding. It is a custom to save the dress for the rest of eternity, along with the First Communion dress and the wedding dress. They're going to save these dresses so their daughters can look at them and say, "Nah, I'd much rather have a new one." My niece had a quiet party, everything but the illegal substances. Her dad bought a cake with blue frosting. Boy, was I surprised, as well as just about everybody else, when we all wound up with blue teeth afterwards. In most parts of the United States and Canada, girls will receive a Sweet 16 party. Yes, it's their 16th birthday. Once more, these things look more like weddings than birthday parties. And the only thing missing is the trip to the church. Now, look at the bar mitzvah, the quinceañera, and the Sweet 16 party. Don't they all kind of resemble each other? The older the kid is, the less religion is in play. But other than that, they all seem to go overboard on one special birthday. Now, thanks to Hollywood, most kids who watch the reality show My Super Sweet 16 will feel their parents should spend their entire retirement on this one night. It's just a birthday party, but now it's become more of a competition. The community, known as Pennsylvania Dutch, were misnamed from the get-go. They are not from Holland. They're not Dutch. The founders of the community came from Germany. Once here in the United States, they told their neighbors they were Deutsch, which means German. The neighbors thought it meant Dutch, so the name Pennsylvania Dutch was invented. If you caught the show about the Lost Dutchman's mine back on December 31st, 2016, you'll know that the Lost Dutchman was in fact German. The Amish have a tradition that for some could lead to all kinds of problems. It's called rumspringa, or running around. At around age 16, before being baptized, kids will be treated to a weekend of unsupervised extravaganza. A night or two on the town with no adults watching. And with that, we're going to take a break and play a couple commercials and drink some more coffee. So don't go away. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. Looking for a great cup of coffee, but you just don't know where to find one? Stop on by the Organic Man Coffee Truck, 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. Tell Julio or Marta you want some of the best coffee on earth. Remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. Did you go out UFO hunting and couldn't focus on the sky? You need to go to Del Norte Optical at 107 Calle del Norte and go have your vision fixed. That's not a UFO. That's a weather balloon.
don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arcanelza Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arcanelza Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back to the show. We were just talking about the Pennsylvanian Dutch, or the Amish. The kids get to leave their community and explore the world. The hoped-for outcome is the youth will see the world as having nothing for them, and they'll return to the Amish community for good. Living by the church's rules is voluntary, and this is a reminder. Well, that's the plan, anyway. The kids pile into the family buggy and go tearing into town. Guys and gals all dressed up in their best clothes. White straw hats for the guys and white bonnets for the girls. Once in town, they partake of the local beverages like beer and whiskey and rum and just about any kind of alcoholic drink. They listen to rock and roll music, and just maybe they'll dance with some of the locals once the booze kicks in. They'll try smoking to see what they've been missing for the last 16 years. You might catch a few of the kids hanging out at the local coffee shop using creamer and sugar. The Amish normally drink their coffee black. They like coffee in their coffee. Once all that carousing and partying is over for the night, the drunk and weary kids pile into their buggies and trundle on home, trying to avoid the police. They don't want to get caught drunk riding. The police do stop them and make the kids dump out their illegally gotten booze. I can just picture the next morning. If you've never had a hangover of biblical proportions, I suggest you avoid it at all costs. Your head hurts worse than a giraffe with a sore throat. You throw up things you ate weeks ago. You pray the room will stop spinning so you can just relax and die. And of course, the folks won't let you lay there and die. Nope, it's time to get out of bed and go do things. Things that will only add to your misery. Sadly, some won't remember how bad things were. Instead, come the next Ranspinga, they'll be right there with their buddies, heading into town to run wild once again. Now, don't get the idea this is all Amish kids. Some take the opportunity to ride into town and look around, kind of like a school trip. They stay together and they're polite, well-behaved. They explore the outside world, and then they go home to their families with only good memories and no hangovers. Those who run wild and drink the devil's brew are few and far between. It's all in how they were raised, or how well behaved they are, or how many of their buddies say, "Here, you've got to try this." Once the Rumspringa has been visited and found to be not what they want, the kids are now ready to be baptized and continue living in their community. A lot of folks find this weird behavior. These are the same folks who drink too much beer and yell at the TV set because their team lost the game. In India, cows are considered to be sacred. And anything the cow gives you is sacred as well, like milk or poop. When a couple buys a new house, they will get a cow to come in and stand there while they decorate it. Flower wreaths are hung around the cow's neck, and its backside is adorned with artistic drawings. The couple will sing to the cow as it is allowed to walk around the house until she takes a big old dump. This greenish poo is then pushed around the house with a broom or a mop to get it into all the corners. This is supposed to bring good luck and prosperity to the new homeowners. Well, you can also buy cow urine in cans or bottles. I'm not going to go into what you're supposed to do with the stuff after you buy it, but it is sold in 6-packs at the corner store. The biggest tomato fight in the world is called La Tomatina. This annual tomato throwing festival is held each year in Valencia town of Buñol, Spain. It is the last Wednesday of August during the week of festivals of Buñol. The disturbing participants throw tomatoes at each other, and even though it looks like a riot, the tomato fight is all in good fun. There are many theories about how this tomato fight called Tomatina got started. One says that in 1945, during a parade of gigantes, or giants, and cabezudos, or big heads, aka politician leaders, young adults who wanted to be in the event staged a brawl in town main square, the Plaza del Pueblo. They weren't giants with big heads, so they were being left out of the parade. There was a market nearby with a vegetable stand. The young folks began picking up tomatoes and hurtling them at the big heads in the parade. The police were called, and they intervened to break up the fight. They fined those responsible in order to pay for the damages incurred. The following year, the giants and the big heads showed up for their march, only to find a bunch of disgruntled youths armed with baskets filled with tomatoes. The big heads decided to forego their parade, and this left the young folks with lots of tomatoes to throw with no targets available. So they began throwing the fruit in all directions, hitting each other in the process. Tomatoes don't leave much of a mark when you get hit, so the following year, the tomato throwers came despite no giants or big heads around. They were there to pelt each other. Today, trucks filled with tomatoes are staged all along the route of the parade that nobody follows. Instead, there is one giant tomato fight that leaves the entire neighborhood red with juice. Few people get hurt, but the tomatoes are a huge mess. During the celebration of the religious holiday Taipusam, Hindus declare their devotion to the Lord Murugan. They show their devotion by piercing various parts of their bodies. The cheeks are the best place to shove things through. All manners of things, too. I've seen people with skewers and knives, and sometimes the handlebars from motorcycles, sticking through their mouths. They also like to stick out their tongues and stick sharp things through it as well. The really devoted folks will build huge sculptures and carry them by hooks and spikes that enter their bodies in various places. The skin on the back and the chest get plenty of holes punched through it. Some folks just aren't satisfied with a few hooks through their epidermis. They place hooks through their skin and then drag huge wooden sculptures around, mounted on wagons. They drag them around town, using only the hooks through their skin for support. The skin is pulled and stretched to unearthly amounts, which should leave all kinds of scars behind. Surprisingly, once the hooks and the skewers and the needles are all removed, there isn't so much as a minor infection. This skin-stretching, hole-punching festival is mostly practiced in countries with high numbers of Tamil people, countries such as Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Mauritius, Singapore, Thailand, and Myanmar. The Onbashira, Japanese for Honored Pillars Festival, is a festival held every 6 years in the Lake Suwa area of Nagano Prefecture, Japan. The purpose of the festival is to symbolically renew the 4 shrine buildings at the Shuwa Grand Shrine, by chopping down 16 fir trees, preparing them as honored pillars, and transporting them down a mountain to the shrine, where they are erected at the four corners of each building. Festival participants ride the Onbashira as they are slid down the mountain, kind of like kids on a sled. A sled that weighs about 7.5 tons and could easily crush anyone falling from the side. The trees are then dragged to the shrine and raised. The festival has the reputation of being the most dangerous in Japan due to the number of people regularly injured or killed while riding the logs. This sounds like fun, far better than a ramp and a bicycle trick. The festival has been going on uninterrupted for 1,200 years. It comes along every 6 years during the transition from the year of the monkey to the year of the tiger. The festival lasts for several months, during which the trees are selected, trimmed, decorated, chopped down, and used as some form of deathmobile sliding down the mountain. The trees are selected for their size and straightness. Especially designed, blessed axes and adze are used for the trimming and the chopping. Yamadisha means coming out of the mountains. The trees are dragged through the forest over rough terrain. When they come to a steep hill, the word kiyatoshi is used, which means tree fall, and that's exactly what is about to happen. The young and the foolish climb aboard to show how brave they are, as the logs are let free to come cascading down the mountain, with devotees being flung from the sides like fleas from a dog's back. Once the trees have stopped rampaging down the mountain, the hurt and the dead are rounded up and dealt with appropriately. Onbashira has a reputation for being the most dangerous festival in Japan, if not the entire world, and it has led to the death and injury of many participants. There were fatal festivals induced in 1980, 1986, 1994, when 2 men drowned while hauling the logs across the river. In 2010, 2 more men died after falling from the trees raising portion of the festival, and in 2016. Now, oddly, there are no records of how many people died before 1980. Notice there is no report of men dying from being crushed as the logs went careening down the mountains. I think these statistics are kept secret to keep the authorities from maybe stopping at least the log ride part of the celebration. I wonder if Disney ever watched the Onbashira going on and thought, that might make a good ride at my theme park. And now we come to some strange wedding rituals. Blackening is a traditional wedding custom performed in the days or weeks prior to the marriage in rural areas of Scotland. The bride and the groom, The bride and the groom are captured by their friends and relatives. They're drug outside, and then they're covered with all things sticky and smelly. Then the couple are paraded about town in the back of a truck or a wagon. Man, am I ever glad all I had to put up with was El Muerto. To make sure everyone knows the couple are coming, their so-called friends and family walk along the streets ahead of them, banging on pots and pans. You don't want anybody to miss out on your public humiliation. Blackenings occur predominantly in rural areas of northeast Scotland, the Highlands, and the Northern Islands. The custom is supposed to have derived from the original custom of washing the bride's feet. Before the big event, the bride would have her feet and legs covered with a black sooty-looking substance and then have it scrubbed off. No big deal, right? At some time in the past, the groom was invited to have his feet washed as well. Then things got weird. The black sooty stuff was replaced with food and liquids, anything that would stick. The activities were moved outside, and so weddings were almost always held in the summer months. The couple were tied to a tree where they could stand there as everybody walked by and had a good look. You didn't want to be blackened outside in the snow. From there, the whole thing became a smear fest. Anything was okay. The washing part seemed to be forgotten. Today, this ritual is supposed to show the soon-to-be couple if they can go through this humiliation, they can go through their life together. In Northern Ireland, this activity is called a doing. And we're going to take a brief pause here and drink some coffee, so don't go away. We'll be right back after these very informative messages. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. Back in 1776, one of our founding fathers said, "Give me coffee or give me death." And if that's how you feel about your coffee, you need to go buy the Organic Man Coffee Trike and have a cup of the best coffee on the world. 4501 McPherson, number 9. And remember, life is way too short for drinking bad coffee. Did you go out UFO hunting and couldn't focus on the sky? You need to go to Del Norte Optical at 107 Calle del Norte and go have your vision fixed. That's not a UFO, that's a weather balloon.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. Speaking of strange things, I have no idea what that loud beep noise was. It was very loud in my headphones, and hopefully it wasn't too loud in y'all's end of the radio. The Tuhia people of China have a custom of crying. Beginning 1 month before the wedding, the bride cries her eyes out for 1 hour each day for 30 days. After 10 days of this hour-long sob show, the mother of the bride joins in, adding her waterworks to the hour. 10 days after this, the grandmother joins in as well. Now you've got all the women in the home crying and sobbing. Some folks say it sounds kind of like singing. They're not crying because they're sad. No, this is supposed to be tears of joy. This makes me think of a song by Joe Cocker called Cry Me a River. The Mauritius island of French Polynesia, the bride and groom are treated to a bizarre kind of a private walkway. Once the wedding reception is over, all the relatives from both families go outside and they lay face down on the dirt. The bride and groom then get to walk out across them like a human bridge. It doesn't matter if they wipe their feet off first or not. The folks on the ground are going to get dirty. In some parts of India, the groom takes his shoes off as he approaches the altar. As he walks away, the family of the bride try to steal his footwear. His family try to defend his shoes. As both families wrestle over the footwear, the groom can only stand there in his socks and watch. If the bride's family capture his shoes, they get to keep them until he pays a ransom in order to get them back. Oh, what fun! I wonder if this ever leads to bad feelings between the groom and his in-laws. Here in the United States, the bride is supposed to wear a white dress. In fact, if she shows up in any other color, no one even knows she's the bride. This wasn't always the case. Back in the 17 and early 1800s, the bride could wear any color, except white. White was considered to be a sign of mourning, like as in a funeral gown. 1840, Queen Victoria wore a white dress to her wedding. This was considered to be wrong, but hey, who was going to tell the Queen she was doing it wrong? Well, once the Queen had set the standard, everybody else jumped on board. The tradition made its way across the pond, and next thing you know, brides must wear white, or they're just not brides. This is supposed to be a sign of purity or something. Now, say you want some good luck in your world. How do you go about it? In China, the number 8 is considered good luck. You'll find it in lots of places. It is said if you want to always have a few dollars, you should have a number 8 in your wallet or purse. Only 1 8 is acceptable. 2 or more will have the opposite effect. I keep a number 8 in my wallet. I'm not rich, but I've never been broke either. Now, I'm not superstitious. I'm just giving it a test try for the past 20 years. The number 9 is considered bad luck in Japan. Do any of you have a computer running Windows 9? Nope, they went from Windows 8 to Windows 10. There's a huge amount of business with Windows in Japan, and they didn't want to run afoul of any strange superstitions. Make a wish and blow out your candles. How many times have you seen or heard this? It began way back in ancient Greece. Artemis was the goddess of the moon, marriage, and childbirth. To worship her, cakes were baked in the shape of the moon. Lit candles would adorn them. If you were able to blow out all the candles on one cake, you would receive your wish and you would have good luck all year long. In Germany, the cake would be baked and set out on the table all day. The candles would be lit around it to ward off demons. The candles represented your mortality. By being able to blow out all the candles in one breath, you were showing your control over your own destiny. Many cultures believe there's a relationship between physical and emotional pain. Being hurt emotionally should have a visible sign. The Denai people of West Papua New Guinea take this belief to an extreme. Members of the family of the deceased will have a finger amputated whenever a loved one dies. This was to show they were in pain, which, having a finger lopped off, will put you in a lot of pain. It was also used to protect against evil spirits. I guess the pain of losing a finger will keep the spirits away if the loss of a loved one didn't do the trick. Although it is against the law today, older members of the tribe will still show signs of this practice. And just what are the authorities going to do to you if you're caught chopping your digits off? I guess they put you in jail. This brings to mind an old law in the books from way back. In Great Britain, up until 1961, suicide was illegal and it carried the death penalty. There are very few reported prosecutions for attempted suicide, In 1961, Great Britain realized their error and they passed the Suicide Act. An unusual modern-day funeral practice can be found in Los Angeles. People's time is far too valuable to be sitting around some church or funeral home to say goodbye to a loved one or somebody you knew, kind of. Enter the drive-through funeral home. Just like going to Jack in the Box, you can drive up, look at the dead guy in a box, and drive away, knowing you've paid your respects to the dearly departed, all without ever leaving the comfort of your vehicle. You might want to turn the radio to an appropriate channel so you're not jamming out while paying that oh-so-precious last visit. I imagine this will soon be seen at hospitals as well. Drive-by visitation for those sick or injured folks in your life. In Madagascar, they have a family festival called Famadihana, which means turning of the bones. The idea being, the faster a body rots away, the faster the spirits can leave and go in pursuit of the next life. To help the rotting process, bodies are dug up every 2 to 7 years and they're carried around town. The family takes turn dancing with the dead bodies. This is considered normal, so nobody gets weirded out by the idea of having a dead body as your dance partner. In ancient China, it was believed the dead needed to be as close to the sky as possible so their spirits could get to the next life quickly. This led to people burying, or rather hanging, the dead from the sides of cliffs. The coffin would be hoisted up the cliff face and suspended from boards driven into cracks. This might have worked well if not for the weather and the wood not being a good mix. With time, the wood begins to come apart, and the bodies, along with the coffins, begin to trickle down the face of the cliff. People had to climb up and fix the wooden containers and try to keep the dead bodies up near the sky and not laying around the base of the cliff. Eventually, this type of funeral practice fell out of popularity, but today there are still hundreds of coffins hanging from cliffs all over China. Still, my favorite funeral practice is what is known as sky burial. When somebody dies, they have the usual grieving period. Then the body is taken out of town to a nice large clearing. The mortician sets the body on the ground and then gets busy chopping and carving the body into small chunks. The chunks are left out in the field for hungry vultures and scavengers to come feed. Within a matter of hours, there's nothing left but a few large bones. The sky burial is still practiced in Tibet, Qinghai, and Inner Mongolia. From then on, any time the family sees a vulture flying around, they can think, well, there goes whichever relative it was that recently died. And the birds and the other creatures, they get a free meal. Some of y'all will be happy to know the book, Strange Things, is coming along nicely. It will be out sometime detailing some of the past shows. I am adding new content to some of the shows, so this won't be just me reviewing what I've already said over the air. Now, hopefully this book will be worth reading because it's going to have a lot of things that were never broadcast. I'll let you know when the book is out and how you can get a copy. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. If you did, tell your friends. Let them know what they're missing. And it's free. So be sure to come back next week and hear all about strange things. Our archives can be found at strangethings.podomatic.com. And if you'd like to contact us, you can write to strangethings@arkanasa.com. Till next Saturday.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder 3. Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?